Welcome back to the Methuselah Factor, 30 Days to Better Health. I'm Dr. David DeRose. Today it's day 6, the challenge, cut the caffeine. Now I know that may not sound all that palatable, but realize I'm saying just cut down on the caffeine unless you want to go all the way and cut it out. Why would you want to do that? Let me tell you Roger's story. Roger was a patient of mine, of course not his real name. Some years ago, he came to a residential lifestyle center. And as I went through Roger's history, the man was dealing with severe pain. He had chronic back problems. He had a lung issue. He was on oxygen. He did not seem to be the type of person that I would expect to improve dramatically with a lifestyle program. But as I went through his medical history, I came up with a few things that I thought he could improve. He really was doing pretty well overall. But one of the things I highlighted was a request for him to stop his use of caffeine. Now, mind you, he was just using, 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. Roger didn't let on during that visit, but I later learned from him that he was extremely upset with me, that I would take away his caffeine when really he was doing so well in so many other respects. Well, Roger stuck with the program during his time with us. He went home. He continued on that lifestyle. And to my amazement, when I saw him some 6 months later, Roger was hiking mountains without oxygen and without pain. As I spoke with him about his improvement, he attributed some of his success to leaving off the caffeine. Just wishful thinking? Just a misconnection of the dots? I don't think so. The medical research indicates that caffeine impairs blood fluidity. If you're talking about improving your overall health, we've seen that improving the Methuselah Factor, improving blood fluidity is powerful. When you drink caffeine, it interferes with a healthful compound known as adenosine. Adenosine is involved with relaxing blood vessels, making your platelets less sticky. So when you drink that caffeine, when the adenosine is messed up in your body, your platelets get stickier, your blood gets less fluid, your arteries constrict more, and you have blood flow problems. If that was all there was with caffeine, maybe we could overlook it. But years ago, I had the privilege of studying under the late Dr. Bernell Baldwin. Dr. Baldwin so inspired me. He actually is the one to whom I dedicated the book, The Methuselah Factor. It was Dr. Baldwin that really introduced me to the wonders of hemorrheology, blood fluidity. Baldwin told me and my fellow classmates that caffeine was dubbed by the famous Russian scientist Pavlov as bad habit glue. And by that, Pavlov meant that if you were using caffeine, it would be more difficult to develop new behaviors. We're talking about a 30-day journey, a challenge every day. If you want to be optimally successful, caffeine could interfere. In fact, some would say will likely interfere with your ability to develop these new behaviors. Let me just illustrate this for you by tackling one of the objections I've heard when it comes to cutting back on the caffeine. Some have said, hey, I read an article. It said, if I want to live longer, I need to drink coffee. Some years ago, a study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. It was the first time I heard that claim made, drink more coffee, live longer. And so I decided to actually read the actual scientific journal article. If you just read what comes out in the lay press, you might be misled. And so as I was reading through this New England Journal of Medicine study, I learned it was an incredibly well-designed study. Over 600,000 individuals in it. They were looking at detailed lifestyle factors. And they looked at coffee drinking. Now listen to a statement from the article. It's included in my book, The Methuselah Factor. In age-adjusted analyses, coffee consumption was associated with increased mortality among both men and women. You say, wait a minute. The lay press said that this study showed that people who drank coffee lived longer. But if you understood what I just read in medicalese, they were saying, when you compare two people of a given age, the one who drank more coffee died sooner. So wait a minute, how could it be? How could the raw data show one thing and the researchers and the press come to a totally opposite conclusion? Here's how. Because when they looked at those who were drinking more coffee, they found the more coffee a person drank, the more it was associated with, listen, smoking cigarettes, drinking more than 3 alcoholic beverages a day, eating more red meat, having lower educational attainments, neglecting to engage in vigorous physical activity, and consuming fewer fruits and vegetables. All of these things are known to shorten our lifespan. Are you seeing what's going on here? The researchers found that coffee drinking was associated with bad habits, the very thing we would expect if Pavlov and Dr. Baldwin were right. Well, what happened then? The researchers in the New England Journal of Medicine study tried to correct for all these bad habits, and they came to the conclusion that once you undid all the effects of the smoking and the poor diet and the lack of exercise and lack of educational attainment, coffee actually helped you live longer. Now, I know that may seem laughable. It's not. It's not laughable at all. The researchers were doing just what we'd expect them to do to try to isolate the effects of one factor. But the whole point is this. The fallacy of coming to a conclusion that is different than what the actual free living people are illustrating. I call it a fallacy. Other people would argue, they say I'm being too strong with my judgment. But here's my point. What the research is really underscoring is my big concern with caffeine, that it's going to get in the way of you getting on a more optimal lifestyle. So cut down on the caffeine. Leave it out altogether if you're bold enough. Remember, be bold. And you're on your way to better blood fluidity. The Methuselah Factor. Improving hemorrheology. It's a key to optimal health. We're improving it in 30 days or less. That's day 6. Cut the caffeine. I'm Dr. DeRose.